Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather.
I'm Levi.
And we are farming in southwestern Kentucky on about 9.2 and some acres of land. And we have been doing so since 2019, technically. It's when I raised our first 30 chickens and grew our first garden and did my first little batch of preserving. So we have a total of 25 questions tonight, which is kind of a lot. So I'm going to try to somewhat breeze through them while answering as thoroughly as possible. So let's just get into it.
When you breed your goats, do you start feeding them a higher protein grain immediately, or do you slowly work them up to a higher density grain?
I actually never worried about this in years past. I never changed anything. This year, I took my mentor's advice and started feeding more grain at the end, because that is when the babies are growing the most. That is when the most demand is on the mother's body. And I wanted especially my larger does, to not lose condition at the end, because really the kids are going to take from mom, and I really wanted to keep their condition up. And so far, it looks like it was a good call. Now, some people say you get larger babies if you feed more at the end. I didn't necessarily see that. We kind of have big kids no matter what, so I think a lot of that is genetics.
Tell us about your future home. Do you already have a house plan picked out? What are some must-haves for your home?
So this is one where it's going to be hard to condense it, but go ahead and let them know.
I mean, all I'm really looking for is I want to build a very large but practical kitchen where we can have the food preservation. I want a big island where if we have to bring any sort of a deer, goat, whatever larger animal in to butcher inside, we can do that, whole animal on the island, and then we'll just find somewhere to throw bedrooms off to the
Right,
side.
the bedrooms are on the outskirts, because we don't spend a lot of times in our bedroom as it is. We're there to just sleep, essentially.
Basically, every house or apartment that we've lived in, everyone's always wound up congregating in the kitchen anyway and just hanging out there. So really the idea is to have a kitchen, living room,
A big
like
center.
just be the center of the house, and then the bedrooms aren't nearly as important.
I think it's funny that you talked about bringing a whole animal inside, because that's something that people might not plan to do, but it's something that we have done, because you shot a deer during season, and how cold.
It was probably didn't have another minute after I had pulled the trigger. It very quickly got very dark. I don't know how cold it was, but it was too cold.
It was cold. Did we do the power outage goat or the power outage deer in here? Was that the power outage day?
No.
There was one time where we processed a deer through a power outage with headlamps. That wasn't too bad, but yeah, I believe it was like drizzly rain outside and super cold, and we decided that we would just be more comfortable doing it in the house. So we grabbed the shower curtain off of the shower, laid it down on this table right here, and did the deer inside. And we were able to take our time.
And it was already skinned and gutted.
Oh yeah.
When we brought it inside, I will say that.
That's a good thing to bring up.
How did you find your original breeding rabbits? How did you research the breed and breeder? And how did you make the decision on the specific breeding rabbits that you went with?
What's hilarious is I did not put a lot of extra thought into it at all. I literally went on Craigslist, typed in meat rabbits, and the first thing that came up was a Californian breeder really close to us. And I went out to her, and the rest is history. It was really that simple. I did not look too far into the different breeds. The reason that I settled on Californians, ultimately, I used to have New Zealand's as well, is there was two main breeders in our area that had the actual meat breeds, not just kind of backyard white bunnies. And the one of them was getting out of rabbits, and I wanted to make sure that we could keep that breed in the area. And so I got the Californians from her when she got out of rabbits, and then one of my friends kept his New Zealand's, which he has since gotten out of New Zealand. So there's not a lot of purebred meat specific rabbits around here, and so we're trying to keep them going.
What would a dream barn checklist be for your size of homestead?
Well, I really like the barn that I have now. It would be awesome if it had like a climate controlled milking room where like the excess milk would go. Like if you've seen Roots and Refuge barn, that would be the ideal situation. And she knew what she wanted, and they built that to their their specific needs. Their feed room is even like rodent proof and stuff, that kind of thing. That would be perfect. I don't necessarily need it. I'm not going to be trying to rebuild my barn to be exactly like that, but that would be the dream.
What do you look for on bucks and does for your improvement breeding?
This just highly depends on the animal. Each animal is so different in what they need improvement are. Some of them need better feet, some of them need better udders, some of them need a better like top line. So it kind of depends. Right now, one of the main things that I'm working on with my goats is I do have, because I used Havoc a lot. Havoc was a buck that I had for a long time. Some of his daughters, their udders have a lot of milk, but they hang a little bit too low. So I bought in Blue Cactus Nefarious specifically because of his dam's udder. His dam is Lily, if you're familiar with the Blue Cactus herd, and her udder is, they call it socked on. It's super tight to her body, really high, but still has a lot of capacity and nice sized teats. I'm really not willing to budge on the teat thing. I need the teats to be long enough to comfortably hand milk, and that can be really hard to get with some Nigerian dwarves. But both of the Nigerian bucks that I bought specifically for that kind of thing, because I want to maintain that.
What is the best way to find new quality animals to add to your herd, or is IVF a better option in the beginning?
Oh, I don't think IVF is a great option in the beginning, because that seems complicated to me. Like, you're blessed if you have a vet that will come out there and do something like that. Like, it's one thing to have a livestock vet at all that will come out. But then to have one that will do IVF, especially on goats, because a lot of vets really look down on goats. They don't think that they really have a purpose. They're focused on things like cattle and horses, and if you have a goat, it can be really hard to get one that wants to take you seriously with goats. So it's not super hard to find great quality breeding bucks. There's a lot of breeders that have Facebook pages, and you can check with them. And a good quality animal, especially for a buck, it doesn't have to be expensive. Feral is a very, very nice mini La Mancha, and he was only $250. And if you know anything about the registered and show goat world, that is very, very inexpensive, and he's a nice buck.
How much milk and cream does it take to make a pound of butter, a cheese wheel, mozzarella? Just having 6 does, I don't know if it would make enough to keep and sell.
You'd be surprised. So this question came from someone who's going to buy 3 of our does coming up next month. So he's going to have Breezy, he's going to have Alara, and he's going to have Talia. Those goats are going to give you a lot of milk. Okay? And so as far as poundage per animal, it does depend on the animal, but it also depends on what they're fed. A lot of them will throw extra cream and stuff if they have alfalfa, and you can notice that they will put out extra fatty things like cream when they have some black oil sunflower seeds. But in general, I can get, out of a gallon of milk, I'll get about a pint of cream, which equals about 2 sticks of butter, or a half pound of butter. I believe that works out too. And then with my cheese yield, it's about 1 pound of cheese per gallon of milk. And I get a little bit more with mozzarella. That is a like moister cheese, and so more of like the whey and stuff is retained, and so I believe that is a little bit better, but I've never actually weighed the mozzarella.
How do you homestead and homeschool? I am lost when it comes to time management in this area. I've got 4 kiddos and only one school age, kindergarten going into first.
A lot of people get stuck thinking that you have to have an entire day of school planned, because that's what they would have if they went to school. You do not have to spend an entire day schooling the kids. And that is because they get this specialized attention, like one-on-one, and they learn very quickly, and you can just move on. When they understand it, you don't have to wait for the rest of the class to catch up. You can just move on with the day, and lessons can get done very, very quickly. A lot of times, what I like to do is school through the hot parts of summer. A lot of schools have summer off. We're cooped up inside a lot of times in the middle of the day in summer, and that's the perfect time to do school. When it's super cold out, that's the perfect time to do school. We'll do it we've split up their school day to also include evenings. They will read in the evening times. So it's not like we have a school time and then that's it. It's kind of broken up throughout the day. And Levi actually just started staying home on Mondays. And he does an intensive school day with them on Mondays that helps kind of just solidify some of the book work and some of the more like hands-off or hands-on, I guess it is, learning on the homestead happens more throughout the week.
Yeah, like this coming Monday, I'll be picking up lumber for
My rose arbor.
rose arbor, and I intend to turn that into a school project more or less. So a lot of it can be integrated.
Right.
Homesteading and homeschooling are not necessarily two separate things.
Well, on that same note, I processed 11 rabbits yesterday, and my daughter Molly wanted to process the last rabbit. And as we had the rabbit open, we were talking about some of the parts, and she pulled out the heart, and it was still moving as it often does. It often is, because rabbits process so quickly. And she was looking at it, and she pushed on it, and she could see the blood moving through the aorta or whatever it was, and it was just neat. It was one of those things where I think a kid in school might get to dissect an animal one time.
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah, and really get to see those parts and things and whatever. And our kids see it all the time. And so there's just stuff that happens on a farm that is a massive blessing to understand how life works. And I think just existing on the farm gives a lot of kids an education that they don't even realize that they're getting.
Mini La Manchas. Have you found them to be year-round breeders like Nigerian dwarves, and do they produce more milk than the Nigerian dwarves?
They are not year-round breeders, at least mine. If they had a significant amount of Nigerian dwarf, they might, but even my doe, Tori, she's like 76% Nigerian dwarf. She does not cycle year-round. But they do produce a lot more than a Nigerian dwarf. However, I will say this does kind of depend on the goat, because you can have some Nigerian dwarves that really put it in the pail, and you could have some La Manchas that really don't, like my goat Christine. She's never put a ton in the pail. I've got Nigerian dwarves that give me more milk than she does, so it does depend on the goat, but in theory you should be getting more out of a mini La Mancha than you are a Nigerian dwarf.
Can you talk about if you test your goat herd for CAE, Yonis, or CL?
I do it every fall. I'll do a blood test. I have videos on how to do blood tests for your goats. It's a lot simpler than it sounds. I use I think they're called vacutainers.
Yeah, vacutainers
is what they're called. It's really simple to just place the needle, pop on the vacutainer, the blood just sucks right into it, and you pull it out, and it's ready to go in the mail. It's quite a simple process. It sounds like it would be really, it does sound intimidating, and it is intimidating at first. But once you get the rhythm of it, it's pretty simple to do, and I would like to keep it up.
I'm looking for a security camera set for both my home and barn. What kind do you have, and do you have any other recommendations?
That's the only type of camera that we have had like that. It's the Reolink brand. The first one was actually given to us. It was put on our wish list and was sent to us, and we really, really liked it. And I did upgrade to one that I could kind of move around to see in my barn. I super like it. The only thing with it is, and this doesn't apply to everybody, but when I do a live stream with it, sometimes the audio will lag behind the video. So you'll see something happen and then you won't hear what happened. Oh no, it was the opposite. You'll hear something happen, but then you wouldn't see it for several minutes. And I couldn't get them to help me sort of fix that. It could be my streaming software, but for like regular old home use, I love that camera.
On that same note, what do you use for your signal extenders, and do you need internet for the security cameras and extenders to function, or are they independent?
The Reolink camera does require Wi-Fi to connect to it. But for years I used a baby monitor, but in order for it to reach the barn, I had to set the parent unit like right here, right in the window, so that it would have a clear line to the barn. And that worked for a long time, but we were really grateful when we got internet out here and I could put in the internet cameras. And the signal booster is for the internet, and I brought one in. Is it still over here?
Over there somewhere.
This is what we have. It is a Macard wireless repeater. I got this on Amazon, and this is what makes our internet more strong in the barn and in the shed. And I want to put one in the greenhouse, but I don't know if I necessarily have to put it in the greenhouse, mostly for live streams and things. But it worked pretty well in the greenhouse today while I was over there.
You have a lot of electric netting, and it's so expensive. Do you have a preferred brand, and how do you get started buying netting kits?
So I didn't have any other netting that I purchased besides the Premier One netting. We started with that. And when I bought it, I had used our tax return that year. And I also went into, if you go to Premier One's website, they have like a closeout or returns section. So if you go in there, I go there periodically, you'll find like rolls of netting and energizers and things that people have returned for whatever reason. They're fully functional, but because the package was opened or whatever, they'll be discounted. And that's a really great way to get a deal on high quality netting. Pretty recently, we realized, not even pretty recently, because I mean, we've had this kind of mindset for a little while with a lot of things, but we realized it mattered with a lot of things in life pretty recently. But buying quality up front will save you money in the long run. It really will, because I don't know how long some of the, like, I don't know even know if Temu sells it, but like Alibaba, these kind of things, I don't know how long they're going to last, and you could end up flushing money down the drain replacing those things. And so it's worth putting something off for a little while to save up for quality. I really genuinely believe that.
Reagan wants to know why I wear my watch upside down.
That was the first question we got on the Q&A call. I thought it was funny. So
random.
Describe upside down. How can a watch be upside down?
Instead of having the face of the watch on the outside of my wrist, it's on the inside.
I see that a lot.
You
I see a
it
lot of people do that.
Really?
Yes.
Because I don't know that I've ever noticed someone else.
Reagan says he does it, and he does it for a reason, but he wants to hear your reason.
Oh. So I don't remember exactly when I started turning my watch around like this, but it was at some point early on when I was in the Army. And there's sort of a couple reasons. One, carrying a rifle or sitting in like a machine gun pit or just behind a rifle, it makes it just less movement to look down and see the time to make note of when different events happened or if you're waiting on a specific time. And the other is it sort of just obscures the glint from the glass on the watch frame or watch face if you're out walking around. Initially, it was more of a tactical reason, but it just became habit, and I don't know if I could get in the habit of looking at that side of my wrist to see the time.
I feel like it would get in the way. Like when you're working, that big old face to be back here.
That might.
Wouldn't it? I don't know. I couldn't stand it at all. So I don't wear a watch.
But anymore, it's just habit.
Mm-hmm.
And what are your tips for worm prevention on low land?
There's two ways to interpret this. It's low lying land or low quantity of land, like small pastures, right? So really, for both of those instances, I would recommend people buy and use BioWorma. Now, I'm not sponsored by these guys at all, but Premier One also sells this. I just bought our bucket for the year because we don't pasture rotate, and my goats they've got a lot of space, but they have their favorite areas, and they can still get really worm burdened sometimes, especially when we get a lot of rain, because our land does sit quite low and it's very muddy and mucky and murky. It's the perfect environment for worms. And what BioWorma does, I believe it's fungal based, and the goat eats it. It doesn't matter if they are pregnant, it doesn't matter if they are lactating, it's safe in both of those instances. But the fungus itself gets pooped out with the eggs of the worms that the goats have on board, and what it does is when those eggs hatch, the fungus feeds on that larva and it breaks the pest or parasite life cycle so that those baby larvae can't then get on the grass blades and be re-ingested by the goat. It just cuts them off right there, and we have found it to be very helpful. This is our third season using it.
And how did you learn to make all your dairy products?
YouTube.
One recipe at a time.
Yeah, and one recipe at a time, and one focus at a time. I couldn't be learning all the things all at once. So I spent a lot of time figuring out bread. And then I even put the bread on pause during the summer for the longest time. Mm-hmm. Now I can do bread pretty regularly, and I can manage it through the busyness that is spring and summer. But with cheese, it was the same thing. I had to really focus on that. It took some time learning it, but I just did it through YouTube. Jennifer Murch is a really great cheese making channel. She's hilarious. I highly recommend watching her stuff. Also, there's Gavin Weber is very, very good. The first couple cheese videos, I actually watched Crystal with Blue Cactus Dairy Goats. She has a couple cheese making videos, and I just started there. It was YouTube University, the best place to learn things, and then just diving in.
What is your favorite animal to farm and to have?
I love my goats. I love them. Like if I was to think about getting rid of all but one, I would be keeping those goats for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, I would give the same answer probably for fewer reasons than you would.
Yeah.
But the meat that we can get off of them plus the dairy, I think just does make them an all-around very useful. Because initially I was thinking the rabbits, if we had to get rid of all but one, but the rabbits aren't as multi-purpose.
Right, because the goats also do land management for us. So we can use their manure in the garden, like we can use the rabbit manure. So, and the dairy allows us to do a lot. Like those goats pay for a ton on this farm with just the dairy that they bring in. And then the meat that we get from the babies that we don't sell and the babies that we do sell, the adults that we do sell. The goats, they're my favorite anyway, but they also pay for everything else.
What are the top 3 plants our family uses every year?
I was trying to think about that.
Tomatoes for sure.
Absolutely. And then
lemon balm in the kids' tea.
Those kids, we've got so much lemon balm that was here when we bought the property, and it's done nothing but spread. It's around the house. They use that every day. They make lemon balm tea every day. But also, I just ran out of canned green beans. I love it's so easy, canned green beans. But I also really like growing any kind of season. I like to grow some greens variety, some leafy green thing. Because those things are really easy to chop up and saute and put in anything. Or just to chop up and not saute and put in anything. I really like kale. The kids really like kale. So yeah, we have tomatoes, beans, kale. Those are probably some of my most favorite and most reached for things on the pantry shelf.
How does one go about finding a goat mentor?
So I have a mentor. I have 2 of them. Neither one of them was it explicitly talked about, yes, I will mentor you. And so they just sort of fell into that role, and I have fallen into that role for a lot of people too. Usually it comes when you buy a goat from somebody, not all the time. But I really think if you can buy an animal that kind of comes with that, then that is probably the best, because then you've got somebody to kind of lean on with something not if, but when something goes wrong. And you can usually tell when you're buying an animal from somebody if it's really their passion. And a lot of times they're more than willing. A lot of people are more than willing to help you with your questions and whatever, and help you get started and help you get settled. And so that's a blessing. So try to buy from somebody that does things like disease testing and that kind of a thing. It helps. If you can buy from somebody that does a performance program like milk testing and stuff, those people usually care a lot about their herd, and they usually really love the goat community and would love to bring more people into it. So those kinds of people, get in with them.
What is the best long-term storage food you grow?
Long-term storage. Oh, you know what it is? It's beans. So I just canned a bunch of beans, and I need to do it again. But they're black-eyed peas, chicken and dumplings, cowpeas. These are technically cowpeas, I guess. Not necessarily beans, but it's the same kind of idea. These are very easy to grow. They're basically set it and forget it. I haven't had pests on my cowpeas any of the years that I've grown them. And they're easy to harvest, and you just set them out and let them air dry and stick them in a jar. And they last for a very, very, very long time. So I choose this. And you can also can them if you want for easy dump and go. Because sometimes I want beans, but if I've forgotten to soak them, that can be kind of a pain. So I have canned some.
Love your content. I must have missed it somewhere about the chickens. I thought they were your least favorite animal to keep and got the impression, yuck. What made you start back with them?
I never stopped chickens. So I think someone saw my egg price video that I did recently. I didn't realize that I still have chickens. We have always had egg layers. I actually still have some of my original birds that I bought in 2019. They're out there. If chickens didn't lay eggs, I probably wouldn't have them because I don't like them. I don't like raising chickens. I think that they're a lot of work and they eat a ton of food for what you get out of them. They are not necessarily cheaper to keep if you aren't already set up, and I think I talked about this in that video. But yeah, I've always had the chickens. I just don't feature them a whole ton because they're not necessarily my favorite. But
Why did y'all decide to move to Kentucky, and how can I find a couple of cheap goats?
so you answer the Kentucky one, and I'll answer the cheap goat one.
Ultimately, the Army brought us to Kentucky. My parents and all of my siblings already lived here, but on the Tennessee side of the border. And one of my sisters had a friend that was going to be moving and selling their property, and we, moved in. Like, I think technically we bought before they were moved out. Because the family was here, I did sign a contract to come to Fort Campbell, and then obviously got out. And are here to stay.
We are. Now, I would not be looking for the cheapest goats that you can find. I wouldn't put cheap as the top of your list on, the perfect goat. Because you can be inheriting a lot of problems with cheap and free animals. Doesn't have to just be goat. That doesn't mean that you're going to have problems all the time. But if you don't know who you're buying from, you're just getting some random goat off of Craigslist or Marketplace or whatever, you're going to be inheriting a problem, I think, like more often than not. And so a lot like I talked about with the fencing, take your time. Save up for the animals you want. Just like I mentioned with feral, you do not have to spend a ton to get a great quality animal. If you love a great quality animal for cheaper, La Manchas are the way to go because people don't like the no earness of La Manchas, and La Manchas tend to be cheaper because of that. They're awesome goats, beautiful personalities, amazing milk, really great animals, and just because of the ear prejudice, they are cheaper. But right around, I would expect to pay between $250 and $500 for a very good quality animal, and that is not outrageous for a dairy animal that's going to live and be productive for many years. So that is an investment still. I can definitely recognize that. But save up for an animal like that. It's going to save you a lot of headache and heartache in the long run. A lot of times animals are the price they are because there's a lot invested into them. Like the disease testing we talked about, that costs a lot of money. It costs me between $400 and $500 every year to disease test our herd. And so with that makes the need for the return to be a little bit more on the animals that are sold out of that herd, and it's worth it.
Do you track numbers of how much you grow and preserve? Pounds of beans or rabbit meat, number of eggs, that kind of thing for your records?
Some people do. Lord, the people with that kind of organization, I look up to you so much. One of our members, Heather, she knows which chicken lays what egg, and she knows who laid how many eggs per week. She keeps that great of a record. And because of that, she could tell when one of her chickens was sick.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? I'm not that organized, so I don't. My friend Megan does. She did a whole video on her freezer organization. I'm going to link it below because it was really good, and I wanted her to do it because I have dreams of being organized with my freezers one day, but right now I don't keep track of anything.
What is the needed equipment to start making cheese?
A big pot and some butter muslin is really the basics. It's great if you have some, like I have a pretty nice cheese press, but you don't even need that. Actually, the past few times that I've made cheese, I've had too much curd to fit in my large cheese mold. And so what I had to do was actually suspend a separate mold. You could really use, some people use like a coffee can with holes drilled in it. Put that over a pot, like on top of like a cooling rack or something to support it. And then you'll weigh it down. You can weigh it down with like jugs of water and things in order to get the weight that you need. I know that some people have like those discs that you would put on not the pull-up bars, what are these called? Bench press
Yeah.
bar. They'll put that on top in order to weigh their cheese down. You can get really creative. The bare minimum, though, is a big pot and some butter muslin.
How do you keep your chickens contained in the fence, and how do they not get eaten by raccoons?
I don't know, they might get eaten by raccoons. I don't know how many chickens I have. I do know that I used to have a Bantam Silky out there, and now I don't. I don't know what happened to her. She's gone. The kids have their favorite chickens, and they keep track of them. I have a feeling that it's either an owl or some kind of aerial predator. I don't think we have a lot of raccoons, and the livestock guardian dog definitely helps. He barks at anything if he sees it. Sometimes we'll lose eggs and things to skunks. He seems to not mess with the skunks, maybe because of past experience, I don't know. But the chickens stay in the chicken yard because I pinioned them all. So you can clip their wings every so often, and then they'll molt and new ones will grow in, and you've got to do it again. They say you should only cut one side so that they're off balance. But what I did is when they were chicks, I did this with my guineas too. That's why the guineas stay in the yard. When they're little, you just nip off that last little segment. Like if you eat chicken wings, it's called the flapper, the very end. That just gets cut off. There's like one drop of blood, and they move on with their life. And I just do it to one side, and they're essentially, it's like having their wings clipped for life. And it's been great, and it works well. Hello. I actually am going to interject in on myself here because I realized that there's a question that was asked that somehow didn't end up on our list last night when we were recording. And that was, you know, your goats are so nice coming up on the milk stand. How are you doing it? What am I doing wrong in training my goats? And I wanted to absolutely answer that question. Now, goats are incredibly, incredibly stubborn. They're also creatures of habit, and sometimes starting new habits with dairy goats it's a lot of work. It's a lot of mental work and sometimes a lot of physical work. The best advice that I have is to do the same thing every day in the same order, and don't allow them to have grain anywhere but the milk stand. It usually doesn't take maybe a week for goats to really get the handle of a new routine, and my goats know who comes first. But if they ever kind of clamber at the door, a good piece of advice that I have is to lift up under their chin. Goats lead with their head, and so if there's someone trying to come through that you don't want to come through, put your hand under their chin and just lift up, and they can't walk forward, and you can allow whoever else needs to come through to come through. I also keep collars on my goats that I'm milking so that if I want to guide them through faster so other goats don't, you know, clamber at the door, they don't just take their sweet time, I can pull them through that way. But usually once you get into a routine, they can do it pretty well. It's just establishing that routine that can be really hard at first.
Did you ever imagine that when you made your first videos that this is where you'd be?
I saw this question and I've been thinking about it for days, wondering that if it sounds like cocky or whatever to say yes, because I did. I really did see this, and I really hoped for it. I knew that if I put everything into it, that it would be successful, and it has been. I did a, goodness, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, a video about how the unconventional way that we afford our homestead. And basically the punchline to it was YouTube helps us afford a lot. Your guys' views helps us afford a lot. And at that time, the channel was making half of what it is now. And it's getting better and better every year. I'm really, really grateful. But I did imagine it. I was watching Roots and Refuge. She has a whole thing about starting YouTube or whatever. I've watched the video several times. I think her and Morgan did it in like 2018, something. It was like an old video. And she talked about how she knew that if she was going to be successful, she had to treat it like a job.
Yep.
That's exactly what I did. I treat it like a job, and it worked. So the real ones are still here with us at the end of our Q&A, because we've been yakking for a little while. We haven't been talking for as long as I thought we would. I've been racing my my battery on the camera. But at the end of all of our Q&As, we like to do a giveaway. to the people who have stuck with us. Now, this is something that I recently started taking. I don't know if a lot of you follow the Homestead, but this is her Bee Attuned Mushroom Blend. And she is an herbalist in Virginia. I almost forgot where she was. And she puts this fruiting body mushroom blend together, and it is an adaptogen, which helps just balance your body in like several different ways. I have loved this stuff. However, I don't put it in my coffee every single day. Sometimes I do feel like I need a break from the flavor. It's a good flavor. It's combined with cocoa powder, and it does have a little bit of coconut in it as well. And so I do have an extra of this. This has not been open, and I'd like to give this away to one of you guys who'd like to try this out. So it doesn't matter where you live. I will ship this even if you live somewhere overseas. But comment below your favorite herbal thing at all. It could be a tincture. It could be a salve. You could just like tea, okay? Or not. Just let me know. I don't like anything herbal. But I'll be going live in a week's time, a week from today, the day that this posts. And I will pick the winner from the comments that talk about something that they like or don't like herbal. And I will send this to one lucky winner. Be very careful of scammers. So far, the way that we've been doing giveaways have worked out really, really well. But if I did not announce your name on the live stream, you maybe didn't win. So don't give your personal information to anybody. I don't need anything but your address in order to send this to you if you win. Anyways, guys, it was good talking to you. Thank you for all your questions. We'll see you guys again soon.
The end.